Hi guys, I'm Shmee and welcome back to the channel for a particularly exciting video today because I'm at SVR, Super Veloce Racing, who have recently been appointed the UK dealer for Zenvo. And today, I'm going to be taking a first look and then a test drive in the £1 million Zenvo TS-1 GT. It's a brute of a hypercar, it's a serious beast. Let's head inside, check it out and see what it's like. Here we are then, and just take a look at this insane machine that is behind me. Everything about it is just crazy and screams drama. Now this is the new Zenvo TS-1 GT, and I'm going to be driving this very car quite shortly, but we're going to start off with a walk around so I can explain to you guys a bit about the car, talk about some of the features, the numbers, and this has nearly 1,200 horsepower. It costs £1.1 million, including taxes here in the UK. It is crazy, but let's get started walking around it, take in some of this design and talk a little bit more about it. And you might know Zenvo, they're from Denmark. I filmed with the older ST1, but one of the earlier investors of Zenvo has now taken ownership of the company to secure it for its future and almost restarted the brand. So this car has a 5.8 litre twin supercharged V8, 1,180 horsepower is the maximum number, 1,100 Newton meters of torque. That means as well as developing their own engine, they also had to develop their own gearbox to actually handle that power and torque. Top speed is electronically limited to 375 kilometers an hour, which is 233 miles per hour. That's limited, which is crazy. 0 to 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour is just 2.8 seconds. But when you look at it, does it not scream presence? You couldn't miss this coming. And as you go around the car, you can see hexagonal shapes like in the front grille that repeat and continue throughout. Now, I don't really know where to start, but it's got a carbon fiber body. Zenvo are making their own carbon now. Lots of intakes, obviously, for the cooling through the front here. Huge radiator fans, their own lights coming around, the carbon fiber parts for the new front splitter added since the earlier car. Still very much looks like the ST1. It's reminiscent of that original look, but with upgrades, with modifications, with changes. Look at the wheels, the centerlock wheels with the carbon fiber parts and the paint touches as well. Those just look cool. Hiding behind them, or not even really hiding, huge ceramic disc brakes. Come around the side, you'll note this car is the pre-production prototype, so it's actually running circa 800 horsepower or so in its current configuration, which is fine because it's wet outside, but you've got these cool fins for the airflow through the side of the car there as well. And you come around towards the rear where there is a ginormous fixed wing integrated into the body panel so the way it floats over, but it's got quite a ducktail effect to it for downforce, grip, for driving. And this is really quite hardcore. It's not a gentle car, it's a hypercar with serious race car aggression to it. And actually you can see the hexagonal shape again in the exhaust pipes here, in the tailpipes at the rear. And by the way, just a show plate, but kind of fun for the moment, 10 years of Zenvo, as we walk around this car in the very bright green paintwork. So distinct again shapes for the rear lights and more cooling to allow airflow out of the car. This whole hollowed out area under here is really quite crazy. We come round to the driver's side to open it up and have a look at the inside, which just continues the craziness. And the first thing I'm going to point out that I love is having different coloured seats. To match the exterior, the lime green on this side, black on the other side. It's driver focused, it's about the involvement. Slightly squared steering wheel you can see as well. That just looks bonkers. So it's got a steel tubular chassis finished off with carbon and various composites to complete the whole package. Massive sills to step in over, but it just looks bonkers. If you come down here, this is a speaker cover, again with the hexagonal pattern in the alloy. I like that, that's a really nice touch. Let me take a step inside, climb into the car. Carbon everywhere, everything. This whole area around the instrument, again, hexagonal instrument display. Lighting inside and up on the roof I notice as well. More hexagonal patterns, lime green on the driver's side, black on the passenger. It's all part of the bespoke personalization and various things you can change. Look at that door panel. That door card is just cool. So let us just turn on the ignition for the moment. Oh, that is nice. Look at that display. That's a very, very cool driver display. The rev counter heading around with the information surrounding it. Nice. And this is a very cool place to be sat. So, pre-production car, things to be finalised. But I have to say, actually all looks pretty good in here. This is where you select the rather special gearbox, which is going to bang gears into place significantly more aggressively than I'm used to on previous cars. But, I mean, it started well. It looks exceptionally cool. But I think we're going to need to hear this fired up. But before we do that, I'm just going to switch it back off and jump out and actually show you in the engine bay, because that alone is something very special. And almost ignoring the fact that there's a 4x4 squared Mercedes there. But if we come around here, there is a button just in here that releases the hydraulics for the rear compartment. Oh, there we go. Up it opens to reveal carbon, carbon, and more carbon. And under there is that 5.8 litre engine developed, built, and created by Zenvo, flanked either side by 345 section tyres, which are vast. Huge, huge rubber, naturally, to keep the traction and keep this car on the road. But you look inside here, it's very, very pretty with all the carbon fibre. But let me shut that back down. Let's get ready to hear the car started in a second. And then it's going to be my turn to jump into the driver's seat and experience a little bit more of what this thing is about. To that. It's a proper, deep, throaty V8 throttle. Very agricultural, very dramatic. Let me head round to the front. Just try and catch a quick glimpse as we head out into the light here. And the colour pops away in this light. That green, that is phenomenal. Right, let us jump inside to experience this. The door handle is here at the top. Swing that open, step in. So, here we are. Let's get belted up and head on out. Here we are then, and from the passenger seat, it's surprisingly civilised. The ride isn't too harsh. We are obviously not exactly flooring it on this rather damp autumnal day in the UK. It's not too noisy when you drive it gently, and then that gearbox that I need to explain more when I'm driving, is actually can be driven quite smoothly. So far, all is quite enjoyable. I'm looking forward to hopping in a minute over to that seat. I find myself now sat in the driver's seat of the Zenvo. So let's start it back up. And it really is such a powerful roar. But listen to one or two little blips of this. And you get that back crackle. It's got ignition cut as well. So when you're accelerating hard, you get epic cracks out of it. But let's pull the door, get ready to get set to start. It immediately feels very sense of occasion dramatic. Everything you're looking at, when you're looking out over the front, it's really proper hypercar from that sense. Now, to put it into gear, you would pull the shifter. You have to give it a moment because the dog teeth gearbox has to click in. So the way that works is literally its gears going bang together. It's not a synchromesh gearbox like we're used to in everything else on the road. Electronic handbrake to release as well, so just pull that off. So it really has extra ability at speed. If you drive it gently, it's going to be a little bit awkward for those gears to find themselves. But at high speed, it's going to just smack in. You can have it with a 7-speed synchromesh, but we're driving with a 7-speed dogtooth. So, off we go. So far, so good. Feels pretty I guess, civilized and quite gentle. There's a decent amount of brake travel, but then very small, like any car with this level of performance, very small margins for where you have feedback from the pedals. So we're going to be able to pull out any second. And out we go. So if you drive it straight in S, oh, there we go. It's the sportier mode, manual paddles. It can be driven automatically, but I think you'd have to be pretty crazy to drive this kind of car in that setup. It's not what it's about at all, and it's actually smoother than I might have expected. It's about shifting, you know, at red line proper performance, and you know, we're not going to get that today. And I am driving a left-hand drive car in the UK, which makes visibility slightly interesting, but so far so good. Visibility is good. Listen to that. Sounds pretty cool. Nice. So from the visibility point of view, the mirrors, you look out over those aggressive arches. At the front, you've got very prominent, I should say, front corners, front flanks arches that you're looking over that give you a good sense of where the front of the car is. And this being a pre-production doesn't have the final seat, so the final seating position will be a touch lower, which is definitely something that will be wanted in the car. You can't see too much out of the rear mirror. You've got the cross strut over the engine bay and then a wing, so basically you can't see anything. Cruising along, it seems to be, I guess, surprisingly civilized. I mean, don't get me wrong, when you touch a bump it is very firm, but it's not, on a smooth road like this, uncomfortable or unpleasant in any way at all. It's actually quite decent and not loud and quite usable. So the suspension system is a particularly stiff setup. It's a racing kind of setup. It's about having maximum feel when you're pushing it on hard, as we go over a bumpy stretch there. And it can have all sorts of custom configuration, ratios, differentials, steering setups. You can have the steering with different level of inputs depending how you want it. As the customer, you get to specify and configure your car completely. Just dropping down the gears. It feels very, very raw, very, I guess you hear everything. Yeah, the shifts up towards the top of the red line are pretty aggressive. Out onto the straight. Okay, it's quite aggressive when you get up, and I noticed the speedometer numbers rising very, very fast. So clearly with the top speed like this is capable of, it's not really designed for public roads, and it's definitely not geared that way, because 70 miles an hour in third gear feels surprisingly comfortable. Go back up through the gears where it calms itself down a little notch. It's a little bit more civilized. The big thing, or the experience to me, is how different this actually is to pretty much anything else. It's like they've started from the drawing board and created their own car, because the feel of everything can't really be directly compared to anything else I've driven recently, at least. It's very unique in its setup, in the way the suspension feels, in the way the steering feels, in the way the engine feels, in obviously all of the interior, the components, everything you're looking at. Steering ratio could be a touch tighter, and this is the prototype again, I've said it, but just to make it very clear. And then you get out onto the road, into gear, you have to be very accurate with the pedals, and we're straight up to the speed limit immediately. Honestly, you have no sense of how quickly you're actually building speed in here. It's quite scary how quick it's going without knowing it. At slow speeds, it's definitely a little bit awkward. I mean, it's not that bad from the visibility point of view, but the gearbox is clearly engineered for going at speed, not going at 5 miles per hour. However, in theory, you can get out of this little traffic jam here, where again, actually, it pulls away quite smoothly. You just release the brake and it goes away easily enough. It's not super jumpy backwards and forwards, but we'll get to the countryside lane where it's going to be a little bit more fun than this traffic jam we're currently sat in. But you have to really be so delicate with the throttle pedal to get the gears to bang them completely into place, especially low at the rev range. So second up into third, you want to release the throttle pedal but apply it again just enough at the right time to pick up the pace again and keep moving. Now a car like this it's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be something you just jump in and drive. There are different hyper GTs that fulfill that niche. This is supposed to be complete experience, so the whole experience of purchasing the car, but then the experience also of driving it every time when you get in the car, and it's not predictable and easy. You know, you're having to think about what you're doing. To drive it smoothly is actually a challenge, as I'm discovering. It's really requiring some thought. And then we get to the countryside, drop it down a gear, and this is where you put your foot down and be careful because of the conditions. And you can feel the superchargers and the way they come through when you get higher in the rev range, up towards sort of 4,000 or 5,000 RPM. But it is so fast that if I put my foot down in 1 second, it's gone. What we can do legally in this environment. And it actually honestly has such a strange sense of not moving that quickly when you're just pootling along like this. I say pootling along, this is up towards 60 miles an hour, the speed limit here in the UK, but it's remarkably easy to drive it in that style. And then if you want to go down the gears, the red line in second is going to be so fast that I just can't even contemplate getting there. But on the way there, you feel that kick. And then yes, I'm short shifting it up, I know, but that's to get some drama out of it because I want to play around and I'm not on a racetrack. So it over revs it when you downshift to slot it in. And then just all hell breaks loose. It's a crazy, crazy thing. Goodness me, it makes all sorts of strange noises to learn and know what on earth they're doing and what's going on there. But it's this feeling of sheer insanity. So it bangs into the next gear with some swooshes and crazy noises going on behind. Then to drop it all the way down to first, just to experience that side of things. I mean, it's actually quite smooth. 40 miles an hour in first gear is fairly civilized. Over 1,000 Newton meters of torque. You feel that with a very, very small amount of travel in the throttle pedal, and that amount of power that comes with such a small little press of it. It's a crazy thing. So, empty road ahead. Just experience that. It launches. It absolutely takes off. The in-gear acceleration feel of this is unbelievable. I'm a little bit lost for words just by how dramatic it is and how much it just takes off. You know, the car weighs 1,580 kilos dry, but you wouldn't really know it. It doesn't feel that heavy as you turn into corners like this. In terms of involvement, it's pretty high up there. I'm having to really concentrate and be aware of what's going on. Just all the movements and inputs are so delicate and accurate. It's really intriguing how hard you have to work to drive this car smoothly, to get the shifts accurate and gentle. It's very much of the same ilk as another car that SVR work with, Noble, the M600. It's old school, it's raw, it's real. It involves the driver having to be precise and having to work to drive it correctly, and genuinely it's quite a challenge. It's going to take some learning and getting used to, but having been in the passenger seat, when it's driven correctly, it drives very, very well. It's fascinating to me. You try and build the revs gently, and then you just get everything. When it gets up above 5,000, like I said earlier, the superchargers come in, and it just launches, it just goes. You thought already that you were accelerating reasonably hard, and then there it is. So it's very, very, very throttle sensitive. It depends what you're doing, and the harder you're accelerating changes, or the harder you're pressing the throttle changes the mapping of the gearbox and how smoothly it will shift. So there's a lot about the car that's been engineered for that racing mentality, for that proper purist driving style, for really engaging and connecting with it. Now, a car like this is not made at all for the motorway, but we're going to go for a short little stretch. That means a slim road. Just do that. Woo-hoo-hoo! It fires into gear when you do it up at the top end of the rev range. And it must just be something else on the road when people see this. It must just look absurd, proper UFO spaceship style.
It's a crazy thing. Half the fun of the dog box I've actually got to experience, which is what happens when you do a full rev flat upshift. So second gear. It shifts so quickly. Okay, that's the experience. That's what it's about. Now, what I've learned here is that this thing is an absolute animal. It's a total beast, but it really wants to be driven hard, properly hard. It's set up in that way that it's all about the full-on effect and impact of it. So with those upshifts, for example, the full throttle approach works well, but then you have to be going fast, very fast. Anyway, we're back at SVR, so I'm going to show you a bit more around here, around the interior of the car, and then a couple more thoughts and opinions on it. Alright, that sound was ridiculous, but like I said, we'll glance a little bit further around the interior and take in a few more things and just count the number of times you see this hexagonal pattern in the leather, in the trim over the speakers, in the air vents, which work quite nicely by the way, the buttons around the steering wheel, literally everything follows that shape. Even the actual steering wheel, I realised, takes the six-sided shape. The display, the icons on the display, the control around here for the climate control, everything, all the little buttons. So I think that's quite cool the way that's carried in on the outside, on the inside, and everywhere. Now again, being pre-production, it doesn't have the final system here, but you get a feel for what the interior is going to be like and how it can be configured and how bespoke it can be, and customised to the seats, the carbon back seats naturally, which are quite comfortable to be honest. Good amounts of padding and support. I've enjoyed sitting in these seats. And then looking further back, you can see a quick glimpse through to the engine bay through that small rear window, but really, rear visibility is next to non-existent. If I try and give you an eye line, that's basically what you're looking at. So you can see the rear wing and the strap braces crossing over there and not a whole lot else, but that's not really what this car is for. And then looking down at the floor again, same pattern repeated on the pedals and the footrest and the floor mat, and then that vast carbon fibre side sill too. Now you can configure one or two things in here. This is again not the final software, but you've got the menu that you can just control some colours, and I think you can just change the speedometer needle colour and that kind of thing, but clearly there'll be a lot more to come in there, which is exciting to see, all in due course. But then traditionally you have wipers, lights as expected. The paddles on the back of the steering wheel, good positioning. They have really sensitive movement, so they don't have to actually move very far at all to engage. So again, very precise. It's all about precision in this car, and you can feel that pretty much throughout. But the interior is very driver focused. Everything's pointing, towards you as the driver, making you feel like the center of the activity and everything that's going on. Let's step out and take another little look, I guess, around the outside of the car. I've stepped out without actually turning off the ignition. You do I one press off there and we're off. So, wandering around, it really is a dramatic looking thing. There is no question about that. It's on 19-inch wheels, 20-inch at the rear. Those big tyres, Michelin tyres, Sport Cup 2s, just crazy. 345, 30, 20-inch radius. That is a ludicrous size of tyre. Sorry about the fact that it's a little bit dirty now from the grime out there. Come down towards the rear, you can see the shape of the diffuser for airflow through, of course, around the exhaust pipes that we've now heard sound ludicrously loud. But I think I should offer a little bit more by way of opinion and feedback driving it. And one of the strangest sensations is I'd actually argue it's not loud enough, if that makes sense. If you buy a Zenvo, you've also probably got other super hypercars potentially, and it's very much about the drama, and it's very loud outside, but the sound deadening is too good for the inside. The gearbox takes some learning, but I think when it's learnt, it would be a fantastic experience. That one or two full rev upshifts that I've done have felt phenomenal. Super cool.
From a looks point of view, obviously each their own, I think it looks pretty standout. It looks like what it's supposed to do. It stands out as something absolutely crazy and out there. The suspension system is really good. It's compliant enough for our bumpy UK roads, but clearly has a lot of feel, so when you're driving hard, no doubt it would feel very, very solid as well. Steering could be made a little bit tighter, slightly on the loose side at the moment, but again, it's all in development. It's fascinating to drive the car, experience it. I look forward to maybe driving it again in future. But as a car, you know, if you want to go out there and have a hand-built, bespoke, crazy thing, that is what this car serves. It's a niche type of product, but it's a mental one at that, and pretty special. So this car running in about 800 and something horsepower is already nuts. I can't imagine what the full 1180 feels like. 1,200 horsepower nearly. That's just bonkers. Anyway, it's a big thanks from me to Zenvo for the opportunity to drive the car, to Lee at SVR Super Veloce Racing, the UK distributor now for Zenvo, for the opportunity to come down today and take this one out for a drive with him, and yeah, to experience it after Benzine Ben in the summer at Goodwood Festival Speed went up the hill climb with Lee in the race version as well, the TSR. But that was the Zenvo TS-1 GT. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you very much as always for watching. Make sure you're subscribed and pop back again very soon for the next video. I'll catch up with you then. Cheers.